In this video we will talk about feral druids in Pandaria. In my opinion, this add-on for ferals was the coolest in terms of dynamics and technicality. Some of the more interesting mechanics of the game were not seen either before or after Pandaria. At the basic level, there are not very many changes compared to the Cataclysm. Keep SR on yourself, and rake and rip on the target. Everything is as always, but nuances have appeared that will draw a divide between a good and an average feral. But first things first. Races. For the Horde we take the Troll because of the Berserker and plus the Beast damage. Some of the bosses will be classified as beasts, and for the Alliance Virgin because of the 1% crit. Talents. I won't talk about all of them, only those that interest us as ferals. The first tier is Mobility. The first talent is a passive increase in running speed by 15%, useful during long dashes, for example, at the Dance of the Emperor's Will. The second talent is a Magician's Blink. After blinking it gives an acceleration of 50% for 4 seconds. One of the coolest talents in this tier. It makes it possible to overcome all kinds of barriers, such as walls on Elegant or ranks on Spirit Kings, and also allows you to instantly reduce the distance without being tied to a target, unlike a standard feral charge. The third talent is a set of standard feral charges plus a couple of new ones for travel forms and human forms. The second tier is Healing. Here Isra Gift, the rest is too situational. The third tier is Control, depending on the needs of the raid or mass routes or Owl Typhoon. The fourth tier is where it gets more interesting. We consider only the Soul of the Forest and the chants. The Soul of the Forest returns part of the energy for the finisher depending on the number of combo points with which we press this same finisher. For example, Savage Roar costs 25 energy, but when using a skill with 5 combo points, you will only spend 5 energy. An excellent talent for those who are just getting used to feral. And the chants. We have 3 charges of chants. The chant deals small damage from his hand and also hangs up his rake, which scales from the procs that we have. Using chants does not consume GCD. According to Simcraft, chants in solo target give more DPS than the Soul of the Forest, but this talent requires excellent energy management, a clear understanding of how to play a feral, so I would still recommend that beginners take the Soul of the Forest to begin with. The fifth tier is Control again. Basically, we need either a whirlwind that pulls enemies back, or a stun, everything according to the needs of the raid. Finally, the sixth tier is the Dream of Cenarius, which I will henceforth call Doc. The rest is unplayable in 99% of cases. This is the twist that was given to the ferals in Pandaria. With this talent, after using Healing Touch you get a buff with 2 stacks. This buff increases the damage of your next damaging ability by 30%. We will mainly use this for finishers. Just imagine that every rip you make becomes 30% stronger, but we'll talk about this in more detail when we consider our capabilities in dealing damage. Glyphs. Now there are not very many useful ones, and of the required ones there is only one. Glyph of Savagery, which allows you to use Savage Roar without combo points. From the useful, the Glyph of Stampeding Roar increases the radius of application, and the Glyph of Shred, under Tiger's Fury and Berserk. You do not need to stand behind for shreds. Everything else is very situational and can be placed to taste. Stats and priorities. Agility is still our primary state, outweighing everything else until the Siege of Orgrimmar. There will be their own nuances, and secondary characteristics will buff us more strongly. Next we have Hit Expertise. I would recommend playing in cap, keeping both stats at 7.5% to avoid misses and parries. Now this has become really important. The rest of the secondary looks like this: Mastery, then Crit, then Haste. Mastery increases the damage from bleeds, and this is our main damage. Crit makes it possible to get 2 combo points at a time, and Haste affects the speed of energy regeneration. So the Reforged looks like this: Hit, Expertise, Mastery, Crit, Haste. Again, with the exception of Hit and Expertise, everything will change after receiving the RORO trinket. Professions. We consider them only according to the principle of maximizing DPS. It's engineering because of the gloves and tailoring because of the patch on the cape. Alchemy is allowed at the very beginning because of a good trinket, but after getting BIS trinkets, alchemy loses its relevance. Gems. The meta looks like this, then we change it to meta for the legendary chain quests. Red Agility, Orange Agility plus Mastery, Purple Agility plus Hit. Attention! This is the type of gemming that we will use before receiving the RORO trinket, after which the priorities will change and the variety of stones will change too. Chanting on your screens. Abilities. Here we will only talk about abilities that relate to dealing damage. We still have abilities with direct damage. Usually they generate combo points, and bleeds, which cause damage over some time. Bleeds, as in Cataclysm, can be clipped, that is, outweighed, receiving an additional tick of this bleed. Combo generators. Mangle. Attention. Now our main combo generator extends rip by 2 seconds 3 times and no longer increases bleed damage. Mangle does less damage than Shred, but it also costs less, and every unit of energy now counts. In addition, direct damage abilities like Mangle and Shred are not our main part of the damage. Most of our damage comes from bleeds. Rake. Direct damage when applied and damage from ticks. We strive for the uptime of this bleed to be 100%. Shred is an expensive and powerful ability. We will use it it in two cases, under Berserk and when prosing Clearcast, provided that the target already has a thrash. Extends the rip by 2 seconds 3 times and deals increased damage to targets with bleeds. Ravage. We will open with it. Finishers. Savage Roar increases all outgoing damage by 40%, aiming for an uptime of 100%. Rip is our main bleed. We strive for 100% uptime. Ferocious Bite. We will use it less often, but at 25% it becomes our main finisher, as it prolongs the rip on the target. AoE. Thrash is an AoE bleed on all surrounding opponents. With Berserker or Clearcast proc, we will also use it in solo targets. Swipe, direct damage to surrounding targets. Now gives combo points and deals more damage to targets with bleeds. Utilitarian abilities. Tiger's Fury, energy restoration and damage increase by 15%. It is advisable to use it before a rake and a damaging finisher. You still cannot use it during a Berserk. Berserk, reducing energy costs by 50% before use. It is advisable to cast Tiger's Fury. Symbiosis is new from Pandaria. A druid can apply this buff to an ally and both of them, depending on the class and spec, will receive an ability. For a feral, the Warlock is interesting. It gives the ability Soul Swap, with which he can transfer all his bleeds to another target. Rogue, transferring combo points to another target, and for saves Priest, Dispersion and Paladin for bubble. Clearcast, triggered by an auto attack, makes the next ability free. We spend it on Thrash, or, if there is already a Thrash on the target, we use Shred. In the case when we urgently need to get combo points, we ignore Trash and hit with Shred. Predatory Swiftness. After using the finisher, there is a chance to receive a buff that will make the casting of some abilities instant. If the finisher was used with 5 combo points, the chance of getting a buff is 100%. Now this ability is critically important to us. And how to play. Basically, everything remains the same. We keep SR on ourselves, rake and rip on the target, hit FB by 25%, prolonging the rip. But now the feral has become truly dynamic and demanding, and all this is due to the talent of the Dream of Cenarius. As I already said, this is a buff with 2 stacks. Each stack increases the damage of the next damaging ability by 30%. We can get this buff after casting Healing Touch. Of course, with some exceptions, we will not stand and cast it. We will cast it instantly, having the Predatory Swiftness buff on us. Swiftness hangs on us for 8 seconds. That is, in order for the finisher to have a dock buff every time, we need to learn how to hit 5 combo points in 8 seconds. How to do this? Let's start with the basic opener. We start with a Healing Touch precast, Stealth, Savage Roar, Ravage, Rake. Now we fill combo points with a Mangle and a Fork appears at 5 combo points. You can buff Rip immediately, then SR with 0 combo points, Tiger's Fury, Berserk, then fill 5 combo points again with Shreds, cast a Healing Touch, get a buff dock and give a new 1 Rip, already with dock. Or you can use SR on the first 5 CPS, then Tiger's Fury, Berserk, and use Shreds to get 5 combo points, Healing Touch and use Rip with dock. Both options are acceptable. Experienced ferals are guided by if they have proc of a crit or not, since a crit hit gives 2 CP and, accordingly, score Fivit turns out faster. In addition, the Healing Touch can be used on 4 combo points. You will spend 1 stack on the 5th CP, and the second on the finisher itself. Sometimes you can take a risk and give a Healing Touch at 3 CP, in the hope of a crit, and then everything is a priority. On yourself SR, on the target Rake and Rip, only now we keep in mind that the finisher must be cast under the dock buff, which means we can't spam abilities. That is, sometimes you will literally go into downtime before using the finisher, accumulate energy to level 80+. Use the finisher and then calmly gain you 5 CP in the next 8 seconds. Doing this with the Soul of the Forest talent is much easier, so while you get the hang of it, I recommend taking it, and as soon as you feel how to play it, you can safely start testing chants. At the very dawn, while Feral is running around in the rags of pre-raid and T14, under unfortunate circumstances, you will realize that you do not have time to gain 5 CP before the swiftness buff subsides. Let's say, at 3 CP you already run out of the swiftness buff and you realize that you won't have time to gain 4 to 5 CP. You cast a Healing Touch at 3 CP in the hope that the next hit will be a critical one, but it is not a critical one, and you have 4 CP and 1 stack of dock. Well, that is, the finisher will be naked. So, it's absolutely no shame to make 5 combo points, get out of the form, cast a Healing Touch and throw an enhanced rip. During the cast you will miss several auto attacks, but this will not be as critical as a weak rip on the target. However, here it's also worth thinking about whether you'll have time with the cast if you're running out of procs, because if you have many procs, then a rip without a dock may turn out to be stronger than a rip with a dock, but without procs. And here I will again mention the hit and expertise caps, because when you only have 8 seconds to gain 5 CP, every miss or parry will become a disaster for you. With experience you will get better and better, including with the gear, and such situations will become a thing of the past. Now about Rip and FB. Unlike Cataclysm, FB does not refresh Rip's power and prolong it, but simply prolongs it. What does it mean? This means that approaching the 25% mark, we must hang the fattest snapshot with all the procs, buffs, pots, and then for the rest of the battle extend this snapshot with FB. And if up to 25% you didn't see yourself in the recount, SCADA, details, which is strange. But let's say, then after 25% you will see yourself crawling up, because a permanent strong rip is not a joke. The rip itself during the battle, as well as the rake, we will constantly recast to a stronger one if something procs. In general, you'll get used to the timing of procs and understand over time which rip you need to recast, and you'll prepare for this in advance. It just takes practice. AoE fights. Feral's AoE capabilities are still low. If there are more than 3 targets, then we use trash, and then hit with swipes, keeping the main target in the target so that combo points accumulate on it. At 5 points you can give a rip or update the SR. This is situational. If there are 3 or fewer targets, then the best tactic is to try to keep rip on all targets. This may seem difficult, but with practice it will become easier to navigate your energy pool. Let's talk separately about our charm. RORO. This is a magic trinket that drops in T15 from Laetian. What is it doing? It looks at our secondary stats, mastery, crit, haste, selects the 2 lowest values, sums them, multiplies them by 2 and adds them to the one above, zeroing out the lower ones. I'll explain now. For example, I have 110 mastery, 80 crit, and 20 haste. Then RORO will sum crit and haste, multiply them by 2, and add them to mastery. We get 310 mastery, 0 crit, 0 haste. In fact, the crit will not be 0, because the trinket resets only the value of the secondary characteristics. The crit that you get from agility on the gear, gem, chants, and procs will remain. And so it turns out that we buffed our strongest secondary stats and cast a very strong rip. But with the receipt of this trinket, the priority of the stats changes. Now we don't push stats unquestioningly into the mastery. Now we will gem, chant, and reforge according to the proportional formula. 1 to 1 to 1 plus 1. What does it mean? In the previous example, we had 110 mastery, 80 crit, and 20 haste, 210 in total. Once we receive this trinket, we will set the stats to approximately the following values: 72 mastery, 69 crit, and 69 haste, also 210 in total. Now let's calculate with this type of reforge, 69 plus 69 by 2 plus 72, and we already get 348 mastery when proc. The numbers are approximate. Do not find fault with them. The final result is important, based on the sum of all values. And also this trinket is RPPM. This means that if your ancestors served cats in ancient Egypt and the cat god favors you, it can procs in a row without stopping. In reality, of course, this will not happen, but the problem with RPPM trinkets is the inability to track them. They do not have internal CD, which means you will have to learn to make decisions quickly. No, very quickly. You will understand this if you read the description of the second BIS trinket in T15, Renataki, and even more so when paired with the detonator from the Siege of Orgrimmar. But if they proc you together at 25%, by the end of the battle your damage will fly somewhere into the stratosphere. This trinket makes Feral one of the best, if not the best, tunnel DPS in the game. Besides, it will be your BIS until the end of Pandaria. Ideally, of course, get the heroic Thunderforged, but even the LFR version, 502 item level will buff you more than anything else. If my memory serves me correctly, then the Harem's Talisman in the Siege of Orgrimmar paired with a detonator, being a heroic Warforged, will buff you more. But up to this point even the LFR version of RORO looks stronger than anything else. And, the heroic, especially the Thunderforged version with you till Drainer Classic. Addons. Due to the fact that now the strengths of our bleeds have become really important to us, it is necessary to use add-ons or Way Akoras that track the strengths of the bleeds. Druid Focus, AFDOTS, and Weakora work on the old client in Pandaria. I believe that no one will adapt add-ons to the classic, they will simply write a WA that will track the power of bleeds. This is important for us both for the final snapshot and for recasting the bleeds during the main time of the battle. So, you trained, everything started to work out for you, and now you are looking for ways to min-max? Wonderful, they are in Pandaria. The first is pre-pull sets. We need a T8 set of 4 pieces, which will increase the duration of SR by 8 seconds. Remember about the fork in the basic opener. Give a rip without a dock or buff yourself with a long SR after the first 5 CP. With 48, this dilemma disappears, because our SR at the opener will be 20 seconds, and this is more than enough to first throw one rip, then immediately a second one with the dock buff, and if you get lucky with crits, then you can even manage to cast one FB, after which you again cast S with 0 CP, get 5 CP, buff the long SR, and then act according to standard priorities. To use this set, you need a macro that allows you to quickly change gear before the pull. Another pre-pull is the starting Pandarian PvP set. Remember how in WOTLK Ferals spammed Moti W before the pull to trigger the Clearcast proc? In Pandaria, Clearcast is only caused by an auto attack, but we have the opportunity to make the first ability at the opener, Ravage, free. This is where the PvP set comes in handy, which, if you have 4 pieces, 30 seconds after putting it on, will give you a buff that allows you to hit with Ravage for free, without stealth, without positioning requirements. Looking at the above, your preparation for the pull looks like this. 40 seconds before the pull, put on a PvP set and get a buff for free Ravage. 10 seconds before the pull we cast a healing touch, receiving dock charges. Then we put on T8 and a second before the pull we use a macro that buffs SR, changes the gear to the actual, drinks the pre-pot. You can add stealth and nitro boosts to suit your taste. Profit. The next point is ability tracking. Ideally, have either WA or add-ons that track the CD of your abilities and procs, for example, trinkets, in order to guess with a strong rip. In addition, sometimes you will catch your trinkets out of sync. If you understand that by 25% you will not get plus or minus the simultaneous proc of both trinkets and your rip snapshot will not be as strong, press escape and remove your hands from the keyboard. Literally. Let both of your trinkets get out of sync completely or almost completely and then start damaging again. It is advisable to plan this in advance, covering the target with bleeds as much as possible, even without a dock. In total, during downtime you will lose only a few auto attacks, which compared to a weak snapshot, it generally makes negligible difference to your final DPS. Pinata. Pandaria has added a cool toy, an ogre pinata. This is essentially a dummy for one poke. They are actively used by warlocks to accelerate to the boss's pull and shoot with maximum charges. But we can also use this pinata. It looks like this. On the trash before the boss we run with a symbiosis rogue. On the last dying target we fill 5 combo points, put a pinata, transfer our 5 combo points to it and, if necessary, discard the symbiosis and take another one. The combo points will not be lost. With T8, you will have a SR buff from the pull for almost a full minute. Not bad, isn't it? Uncover the machine gun with the FB, or prepare curses for the one who kills the pinata before the pull. And once again about RORO. We use RORO to overclock the mastery. The master is responsible for the strength of our bleeds, including the rake. Rake deals 1 direct damage when applied and then ticks, as befits a bleed. Surprisingly, but true, mastery accelerates not only ticks, but also that direct damage when applied, and so much so that it becomes stronger than mangle. I'm not sure whether rake will become stronger than shred. We need to wait for normal simcraft. But in any case, with the RORO proc, rake suddenly becomes our main combo generator. If you get really stubborn, then you need to track the procs on yourself and not constantly spam with a rake. And when it becomes weaker than the last one applied, you can switch to mangle again. A little about the RORO proc itself. If you are lucky and at the time of proc you had 5 CP with a dock, throw a rip, get 5 CP, wait for the end of the rune proc and at the very end throw this powerful rip again. Thus, the total rip under the rune will be longer, and in addition, due to the bleed clip, you will receive 1 tick more of a strong rip. Bear weaving. There won't be time for it. Perhaps in AoE fights, in addition to the cat thrash, jump into the bear and give another bear thrash. If you play the Pandarian private server, then you need a software called Catus. This is a cat simcraft, thought out to the smallest detail back in the days of modern Pandaria. It will also help with reforging in the presence of RORO, with various tests and conditions. But I think that by the release of Panda Classic, the current simcraft will have thought through all these aspects and separate software will become unnecessary. All of the above is true for the old WoW client of patch 548. Panda Classic will be played on the new client and perhaps there will be some changes, but I don't think they will be global. So keep your nose to the wind, torment the dummy and good luck.